Read back.
Welcome to the Pooley's Audio Ground Training Series. Radio Telephony. Written by Helena Hughes and presented by Helena Hughes and Sebastian Pooley. Unit 1. Introduction.
When used correctly, radio can greatly enhance the safe and efficient operation of aircraft. Employing a good radio technique and standard phraseology are the basis for reliable and unambiguous communications between air and ground stations, regardless of the native tongue of their users. Poor communication procedures have been cited as a contributory factor to incidents, accidents and airprox events over the years. Some examples have been documented in the CAA's safety leaflet, RT Discipline. Radio telephony procedures evolve over time, with amendments and improvements being regularly incorporated. CAP 413 remains the definitive document, and the current edition should be referenced not only before your initial exams, but also periodically throughout your flying career. Standard words and phrases should be adhered to where possible, as they have been designed to facilitate clear communication and minimise the likelihood of misunderstandings. A confident-sounding pilot is more likely to inspire confidence in the controller. The reverse may also be true. Controllers, rightly or wrongly, do form an impression of a pilot's ability from the way he or she sounds. If a controller is unimpressed, they may be reluctant to let you near or through their airspace when there's a lot of other traffic. Good RT seems to be rewarded with a good service from the ground. This course is intended to cover not only all the aspects of radio telephony operations required to help you pass the written and practical tests for the initial grant of a UK PPL, but also to serve as a refresher for qualified pilots wanting to update or improve their communications technique. Those wishing to refine their skills may want to skip Part 1, which covers the basics, although some changes may have taken place since you first qualified. You will not become an expert overnight merely by listening to this CD, but it should help improve your technique, choice of phraseology, and possibly, most importantly, your confidence. The more you practice, the easier and more natural the words and procedures become. Priority of calls. The Aeronautical Mobile Service handles messages in the following order of priority. Each of the sections will be discussed in detail later on. For the moment, just appreciate that there is a logical order. Number 1, understandably, distress messages and distress traffic are handled as the main priority. The radio telephony signal Mayday denotes these messages. Number 2, urgency messages, using the radio telephony signal Pan-Pan. 3, communications relating to direction finding. 4, flight safety messages, such as heading, speed and level instructions. 5, meteorological messages. 6, flight regularity messages. One definition is relevant at this point. The Aeronautical Mobile Service is a radio communication service between aircraft stations and aeronautical stations, or between aircraft stations. Now let's have a look at transmitting techniques. Before saying anything, think about what you're going to say. Check that the receiver volume is satisfactory, and most importantly, listen out on the frequency to be used before transmitting to ensure that you will not transmit over or interrupt another station. Maintain the microphone at a constant distance from your mouth. If using a handheld microphone, also avoid turning your head while speaking. In either case, allowing the microphone to touch your lips can seriously distort transmitted speech. Speak in a normal conversational tone of voice. Shouting also distorts the transmitted signal. Speak at an even rate, about 100 words per minute at a maximum. The recipient may have to write down your details. If you know this is the case, speak more slowly. Maintain a constant volume. Avoid using hesitation sounds such as or On commencement, ensure that the transmit switch is fully depressed and ensure that you do not release it until you have finished speaking. This will ensure that your message is not clipped. Enunciate each word clearly and distinctly. Remember that the first language of the recipient may not be the same as yours. Finally, always ensure that you have released the transmit button after your message. This will avoid blocking a frequency, not only a great annoyance and potential danger, but possibly a great embarrassment, as you may inadvertently broadcast things you do not want the rest of the world to hear.
Transmission of letters. The phonetic alphabet is used when individual letters are to be transmitted. Additionally, phonetic spelling is sometimes used where there is a chance of ambiguity. You'll find the phonetic alphabet and spelling on the sleeve included with the CD. A. Alpha. B. Bravo. C. Charlie or Charlie. D. Delta. E. Echo. F. Foxtrot. G. Golf. H. Hotel. I. India. J. Juliet. K. Kilo. L. Lima. M. Mike. N. November. O. Oscar. P. Papa. Q. Quebec. R. Romeo. S. Sierra. T. Tango. U. Uniform. V. Victor. W. Whiskey. X. X-ray. Y. Yankee. Z. Zulu.
Transmission of numbers.
The number 0 is pronounced 0. 1, 1. 2, 2. 3 is pronounced tree. 4 should be pronounced four. 5, fife. 6, 6. 7, 7. 8, 8. And 9 should be pronounced niner. Decimal, decimal. 100, 100. And thousand, thousand.
With some exceptions, all numbers are transmitted by pronouncing each digit separately. The following examples illustrate how numbers are transmitted when dealing with call signs, flight levels, headings, wind velocity, transponder codes, runways and altimeter settings. Aircraft call sign. A Thompson flight with the trip number 455 will be transmitted
Thompson 455.
Likewise, EasyJet's flight number 203 will be transmitted
Easy 203.
Flight levels are also pronounced each digit at a time. For example,
Flight level 180. Flight level 210.
the exceptions are flight levels involving whole hundreds. For example, flight level 100, flight level 200, and so on. We'll now look at some examples of headings.
Heading 100 degrees. Heading 280 degrees. Heading 345 degrees.
And wind direction and speed.
Wind 340, 12 knots. Wind 090 degrees, 15 gusting 32 knots.
Transponder codes.
Squawk 4662. Squawk 7031.
Runways.
Runway 26. Runway 07.
And finally, altimeter settings.
QNH 1010. QFE 995 millibars.
Please note the use of the word millibars in the second example. This word should be used whenever a pressure setting below 1000 is transmitted. This is to avoid any confusion with the use of inches as an altimeter subscale setting. The exceptions to the preceding relate to the transmissions of altitude, height, cloud height, visibility and runway visual range. Basically anything measured in feet or meters. In these cases, whole hundreds and thousands are transmitted by stating the number of hundreds and thousands, followed by the word hundred or thousand as applicable. Combinations follow the same rule. Let's have a look at a few examples. Altitude.
Altitude 900 feet. Altitude 2,400 feet. Altitude 4,000 feet.
Cloud height.
3,200 feet. 5,500 feet. 5,000 feet.
Visibility.
Visibility 1,000 meters. Visibility 700 meters.
And lastly, runway visual range or RVR.
RVR 400 meters. RVR 28, 600, 500 meters.
If a number contains a decimal point, as frequencies always do, the radio telephony word decimal is inserted at the appropriate time. All 6 digits of a frequency must be transmitted unless the last 2 numbers are both 0. Frequency 121.100 MHz is transmitted as
121.1.
Both of the last 2 digits are zeros and are therefore not spoken. Frequency 120.925 MHz is transmitted using all 6 digits.
120.925.
As is 132.750 MHz. Here, only the last number is a 0, so again, all 6 digits must be spoken.
132.750.
119.050 would be transmitted as
119.050.
All 6 digits must be used here as again only the last number is 0. Transmission of time. The 24-hour clock and Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, is used at all times. UTC is also known as Zulu and, fortunately for us, it's the same as GMT. Normally, when transmitting time, only the minutes of the hour are required. If there is a possibility of confusion, the hour should be included as well. Time checks will be given to the nearest minute by ATC. 9:05 in the morning is transmitted as
05 or 0905.
2:00 in the afternoon,
1400.
12 minutes to 10 in the evening,
48 or 2148.
Standard words and phrases. The importance of the use of standard and precise phraseology cannot be overemphasised. Non-standard words and phrases introduce the possibility of misunderstanding with potentially dangerous consequences. The following words and phrases are used in radio telephony communications and have the specific meanings listed now. Acknowledge.
Let me know that you have received and understood this message.
Affirm.
Yes.
Approved.
Permission for proposed action granted.
Break.
Indicates the separation between messages.
Break.
Indicates the separation between messages in a busy environment.
Cancel.
Annul the previously transmitted clearance.
Changing to.
I intend to call a unit on a frequency.
Check.
Examine a system or procedure.
Cleared.
You're authorised to proceed under the conditions specified.
Climb.
Climb and maintain.
Confirm.
Have I correctly received the following, or did you receive the following?
Contact.
Establish radio contact with someone.
Correct.
That is correct.
Correction.
An error has been made in this transmission. or messages indicated. The correct version is
descend,
descend and maintain.
disregard,
Consider that message as not sent.
go ahead,
Proceed with your message. This phrase is not normally used in surface movement communications. In the UK, the phrase pass your message is used instead.
how do you read?
What is the readability of my transmission?
Hold short.
Stop before reaching the specified location.
I say again,
I repeat for clarity or emphasis.
monitor,
Listen out on a frequency.
negative,
No, or permission not granted, or that is not correct.
pass your message.
Proceed with your message.
Out,
My transmission is ended and no response is expected. This word is not normally used in UHF or VHF communications.
over,
My transmission is ended and I expect a response from you. This word is again not normally used in UHF or VHF communications.
read back,
Repeat all or the specified part of this message back to me exactly as received.
report,
Pass me the following information.
request,
I should like to know or I wish to obtain.
roger,
I have received all of your last transmission. Please note, under no circumstances should this word be used in reply to a question requiring a direct answer in the affirmative, affirm, or negative, negative, or to acknowledge any item requiring a readback.
say again,
Repeat all, or the following part of your last transmission.
speak slower,
Reduce your rate of speech.
stand by,
Wait, and I will call you. But please note, no onward clearance is to be assumed and no response is expected.
verify,
Check and confirm.
unable,
I cannot comply with your request, instruction, or clearance. It is usual to advise the controller of the reason why.
Wilco,
I understand your message and will comply with it. An abbreviation of will comply.
words twice,
As a request, communication is difficult. Please send every word twice. As information, since communication is difficult, every word of this message will be sent twice. Level instructions. When it comes to reporting vertical position, it is vital that there is no misunderstanding. Terrain and traffic reasons make it essential that aircraft are flying at the correct level and change level when instructed. The phraseology used when referring to vertical position differs depending on the pressure setting in use. If QFE is set, the word height is used. If QNH is set, the word altitude is used. And if standard 1013 millibar is set, the term to use is flight level. Additionally, if instructed or requesting climb or descent to a flight level, the word to is admitted.
Golf Alpha Victor requests climb flight level 35.
As opposed to
Golf Alpha Victor requests climb to altitude 3,500 feet.
regional pressure settings will be passed in the following format. Region name, pressure. For example,
Golf Hotel Hotel, Cotswold 1002.
and now on to call signs. An aircraft call sign must follow one of the following styles. Full call signs must be used when establishing communication, for example,
London Information, Golf Mike Romeo, Golf November.
or reading back an air traffic control route clearance, and when instructed by air traffic control so to do.
Golf Mike Romeo, Golf November. Use full call sign, similar call sign on frequency.
Full call signs are composed in one of three ways. In the first instance, we can have the characters corresponding to the registration marking of the aircraft. For example, Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, Golf Mike Oscar Juliet Echo, November 333 Kilo Bravo. Additionally, either the name of the aircraft manufacturer or name of aircraft model or name of the aircraft category, for example helicopter or gyrocopter, may be used as a prefix to the call sign. For instance, Piper Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo. Helicopter Golf Hotel India Papa Oscar. Secondly, we can use the telephony designator of the aircraft operating agency, followed by the characters of the registration marking of the aircraft. For instance, Modern Air Golf Bravo November Papa Lima, or Britannia Golf Bravo Yankee Alpha Echo. And lastly, the telephony designator of the aircraft operating agency, followed by the flight identification. For instance, Modern Air 012 or Monarch 416. Once satisfactory communication is established, and provided that no confusion is likely, the call sign may be abbreviated. The pilot of an aircraft may only abbreviate the call sign if the relevant aeronautical ground station has abbreviated it first. Abbreviated call signs. When using registration markings, the abbreviation is made using the first and at least the last two characters of the aircraft registration. So, Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor becomes Golf Golf Victor. Piper Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo is Piper Delta Echo. Helicopter Golf Hotel India Papa Oscar is shortened to Helicopter Papa Oscar. And November 333 Kilo Bravo becomes November 3 Kilo Bravo. With the second style, the telephony designator of the aircraft operating agency should be followed by at least the last two characters of the registration marking of the aircraft. So, Modern Air Golf Bravo November Papa Lima may be abbreviated to Modern Air Papa Lima. And Britannia Golf Bravo Yankee Alpha Echo becomes Britannia Alpha Echo. When it comes to flight numbers, no abbreviation is permitted. So Monarch 416 will always remain Monarch 416. Aircraft classified in the heavy-wake turbulence category must include the word heavy immediately after the call sign in the initial call to each air traffic control unit.
London Control, Britannia 767 Foxtrot Heavy.
On initial contact with a new ground station, student pilots who are flying solo shall use the call sign prefix student. Once acknowledged, it will not normally be necessary for student pilots to use the prefix in subsequent transmissions. Controllers will acknowledge the initial call using the student prefix and will try to make allowance for the limited experience and ability of student pilots when determining the complexity of instructions and/or information which they are passing. Cranfield Tower, student, Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, request taxi.
Student Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, Cranfield Tower. Taxi holding point Foxtrot 1, runway 03. Call signs for aeronautical stations. Let's have a look at how we should address ground stations. Aeronautical stations are identified by, firstly, the name of the location, for example, Cardiff or Luton. And secondly, a suffix denoting the type of unit or service available, for example, tower or information. The name of the location or the service may be omitted once satisfactory communication has been established and there is no likelihood of confusion. Essentially, there are three main categories of aeronautical communication service: air traffic control, ATC, provided by licensed air traffic control officers, or ATCOs, who undergo an extensive training programme and are closely regulated by the CAA, in much the same way flight crew are. Their performance is regularly checked, they undergo continuation training, and the actual hours they work are strictly regulated. Only a controller is permitted to issue a clearance. The call sign suffix will vary depending on the type of ATC service being provided. A large international airport will have several frequencies allocated to it, each performing a specific function. You should ensure that the frequency you have selected to use is appropriate for the stage of flight.
So each unit has a call sign suffix. For instance, the Area Control Centre is known as Control. A general radar service is known as Radar. Approach control will have the suffix approach. Approach control and radar arrivals will have arrival director as a suffix. Approach control radar departures will have the suffix departure. Aerodrome control will be tower. Surface movement control will be ground. Clearance delivery will be delivery. And precision approach radar will have the callsign suffix precision or torque down.
An Aerodrome Flight Information Service may be provided by licensed Aerodrome Flight Information Service officers, or AFISOs, who have taken some less stringent examinations than controllers and are tested at less regular intervals than ATCOs, but are still regulated by the CAA. Aerodrome Flight Information Service is a service provided to give information useful to the safe and efficient conduct of flights within an aerodrome traffic zone. From this information, the pilot will be able to decide the appropriate course of action to be taken to ensure the safety of the flight. That is, the onus is on you, the pilot, to decide. The phraseology used by AFISOs is different from that used by controllers to reflect this change in responsibility. The Aerodrome Flight Information Service officer is not permitted to issue instructions or advice to pilots of his own volition. However, AFISOs can provide positive control whilst aircraft are on the ground, that is, taxi instructions, with which a pilot should comply. In the air, information only will be passed to assist pilots to operate safely and efficiently within the ATZ. When it comes to helicopter traffic, AFISOs are permitted to pass instructions to helicopter pilots engaged in air taxiing. However, when the pilot reports ready to depart, the AFISO will just pass information. For all inbound helicopters, information shall be passed until they land or reach the hover prior to air taxiing to the parking area. Thereafter, instructions shall be given until the helicopter touches down. An AFISO may request pilots to make position reports, for example, downwind, final, and so on. These requests do not have the status of instructions, although it is expected that most pilots will comply. The service is easily identifiable by the callsign suffix information, for example, Sywell information, Duxford information. The last category is the Air-Ground Communication Service. This is provided by radio operators who are not licensed but hold a certificate of competence to operate radio equipment on aviation frequencies. From an air-ground station, only limited airfield information is available. Perhaps the runway in use, surface wind, possibly pressure settings if suitable equipment is available. An AGCS radio station operator may not necessarily be able to view any part of the aerodrome or surrounding ATZ. Traffic information provided by an air-ground communication service operator is therefore based primarily on reports made by other pilots. Information provided by the radio station operator may be used to assist pilots in making decisions. However, the safe conduct of the flight remains solely the pilot's responsibility. The callsign suffix radio is used, for example, Bourne radio. Some other categories of aeronautical communication service include VOLMET, SIGMET, Automatic Terminal Information Service, or ATIS, or Aeronautical Information Services, AIS.
The placement of callsigns. At the initiation of new information, or making a request, the pilot should place the aircraft callsign first, followed by the message.
Golf Alpha Victor, request descent to altitude 3,000 feet. Golf Mike Echo, overhead Daventry.
In reply to a message, the pilot should repeat the information, read back or acknowledgement, and then say the aircraft callsign. For example,
Golf Alpha Victor, descend to altitude 3,000 feet.
Descent to altitude 3,000 feet, Golf Alpha Victor. The ground station will always initiate calls with the aircraft callsign followed by the message. Establishing communication. When establishing communication, the full callsigns of both the aircraft and the aeronautical station must be used. For example, Luton Ground, Golf Mike Oscar, Juliet Echo.
Golf Mike Oscar, Juliet Echo, Luton Ground. Pass your message.
It is worth noting that in the UK, pass your message is used and has the same meaning as the ICAO phrase, go ahead. It is now permissible for you to include brief details regarding the reason for making contact with the air traffic unit in the first call. In an initial call, only the minimum information should be included that is needed to establish either the service that an en route flight requires, or the clearance or information that a joining or departing flight requires.
Southend approach. Golf Mike Oscar, Juliet Echo, request basic service. Red Hill Tower, Golf Hotel Alpha Charlie Kilo, request join. Newcastle Tower, Golf Hotel Echo Lima India, request taxi instructions, departure to Bourton.
Provided that no ambiguity or confusion will result, once contact has been established, continuous communication may be carried out without further use of the location name or the call sign suffix. Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor. Request taxi.
Golf Victor, taxi Bravo 1, runway 08.
Once the ground station has abbreviated your call sign, you're at liberty to do likewise. Golf Victor, taxi Bravo 1, runway 08. Having established the two-way communication with the ground station, you must maintain a listening watch and request or advise the controller of any changes.
Continuation of communications. There are a few special procedures that may be used once communication has been established. All stations is a general call made to broadcast information. A ground station uses this phrase to transmit information to all the aircraft on frequency. The call will be prefixed by the word all stations. No reply is expected to this type of message unless an acknowledgement is requested. All stations, Newcastle approach. ILS now serviceable. The word broadcast may also be used to indicate a message pertinent to all stations. Again, no reply is necessary. Luton broadcast, new QNH 1011. QNH 1011, Luton out. Pilots may also use the phrase to transmit information, particularly position reports when using safety comm.
All stations, Fenland Radio, Golf Oscar, Hotel Alpha Zulu, 10 miles west of Fenland, altitude 2,000 feet inbound.
Say again should be used if there is any doubt that a message has been correctly received. It can be a request for either the full or part of the message to be repeated. Using say again means repeat the entire message. Station calling Coventry Tower. Say again call sign.
Coventry Tower, Golf Mike Oscar Juliet Echo.
If at any stage you receive a message or instruction which you do not understand or have not heard properly, please don't be afraid to use say again to ask the controller to repeat the message. A controller would rather repeat a message than deal with an incident because of a misunderstanding. Here's another example. Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel, cleared to transit the zone VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet.
Say again, Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel.
Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel, cleared to transit the zone VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet.
Cleared to transit the zone VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet, Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel.
You can also ask for a specific item to be repeated using the phrases which follow. Say again, and then the request for the item. For example, say again QNH. Say again all before, and then you would state the first word that was satisfactorily received. Say again all after, and you would say the last word you satisfactorily received. Say again all between, and then you would specify which specific parts you need repeating. Corrections. Where a correction can best be made by repeating the entire message, the person sending the message shall use the word correction before transmitting the message a second time.
Coventry Tower, Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo, Daventry altitude 2,500 feet, correction, Daventry altitude 2,000 feet, QNH 1007, correction, QNH 1009er.
If a controller detects an incorrect readback, the word negative will be transmitted, followed by the correct version of the information.
Golf Bravo Hotel, QNH 1013.
QNH 1013, Golf Bravo Hotel.
Golf Bravo Hotel, negative, QNH 1003.
QNH 1003, Golf Bravo Hotel.
When communication is proving difficult, the phrase words twice may be used. This involves transmitting the message twice in the hope that one will be received correctly. Words twice spoken as a request means that communication is difficult, please send every word twice. As information, it means since communication is difficult, every word of this message will be sent twice. Transfer of communications. Aircraft will normally be advised by the appropriate air traffic control unit to change from one radio frequency to another.
Golf Lima Echo, contact Southend approach 130.775.
Changing to Southend approach 130.775, Golf Lima Echo.
In the absence of such advice, the aircraft should notify the air traffic control unit before changing frequency, and if flying within controlled airspace must obtain permission before leaving the frequency.
Golf Alpha Victor, request frequency change to Thames radar 132.7.
Golf Alpha Victor, frequency change approved.
Contact means that your flight details have been passed to the next controlling authority and they expect your call.
Golf Mike Romeo, contact Norwich approach 119.350.
Contact Norwich approach 119.350, Golf Mike Romeo.
Free call means no flight details have been passed ahead and it is up to you to pass them once communication has been established.
Golf Papa Lima, free call, Exeter radar 128.975.
Changing to Exeter radar 128.975, Golf Papa Lima.
Additionally, an aircraft may be instructed to stand by on a frequency. The intention here is that the air traffic service unit in question will initiate further contact.
Golf Hotel Romeo, stand by Luton ground 121.750.
Stand by Luton ground 121.750, Golf Hotel Romeo.
You would then tune your radio to 121.750 and wait for the ground controller to call you. To recap, outside controlled airspace, either the pilot will decide to change frequency or the controller may feel that another agency is more appropriate. Within controlled airspace, the pilot will be instructed to change. Even if the category of airspace does not dictate that an aircraft must remain in contact with a specific air traffic service unit, if the pilot wishes to call another station, he or she should request or notify such an intention and advise the frequency to which he will be changing.
Golf Charlie Kilo, request frequency change, Thames radar 132.7.
Not only is it polite, but also once two-way communication has been established with an air traffic service unit, a flight is automatically in receipt of an alerting service. This is a service provided to assist aircraft in need of search and rescue aid. One of the alert items is radio contact lost. Therefore, should you just disappear from a frequency without notice, the controller would be duty-bound to inform the appropriate agencies and try to ascertain your whereabouts and safety.
Issuance of clearance and readback requirements. A clearance may only be issued by an ATCO. It is a statement from a controller telling a pilot the route and levels to fly. There are a couple of definitions relevant to the next section. An air traffic control clearance is an authorization for an aircraft to proceed under conditions specified by an air traffic control unit. And clearance limit is the point to which an aircraft is granted an air traffic control clearance. A clearance may vary in complexity from a detailed description of the route and levels to be flown, at busier airports condensed to standard instrument departures, to a brief landing clearance. Clearances are required for any flight, or portion of flight, for which an air traffic control or air traffic advisory service is provided. Controllers will endeavour to pass the clearance slowly and clearly, since the pilot needs to write it down, hopefully avoiding the need for wasteful repetition. For preference, route clearances will be given before engine start when the crew workload is lower. Controllers will avoid passing clearances when aircraft are involved in complicated taxi manoeuvres, and particularly during line-up or takeoff. The aircraft's full call sign should be used by both ATC and the pilot. It is emphasised that an ATC route clearance is not authorisation to enter or take off on an active runway. The words take off are only used when an aircraft is actually cleared for takeoff. Careful phraseology has been developed to avoid any ambiguity, and controllers and pilots should use the word departure at all other times. A clearance will contain the following elements: aircraft identification, clearance limit, route, level of flight and changes of level. For example,
Golf Mike Oscar Juliet Echo, cleared to the zone boundary, north lane, not above altitude 2,000 feet.
Other items may be included: slot time, time restrictions, communication instructions, and any special instructions, for example, approach or departure manoeuvres. An aircraft will be cleared for its entire route to the first aerodrome of intended landing if it is to remain within controlled airspace for the entire flight, and reasonable assurance exists that prior coordination can take place between ATCUs ahead of the aircraft's passage. A typical IFR clearance would be
Modern Air 321 Bravo, cleared to destination Bournemouth, standard departure route Papa, climb to altitude 4,000 feet, squawk 5436, frequency Luton radar 129.550.
As we will shortly see, ATC route clearances are one of the items which a pilot must read back to the controller. Therefore, the pilot of Modern Air 321 Bravo should reply,
Cleared to Bournemouth, standard departure route Papa, climb to altitude 4,000 feet, squawk 5436, frequency Luton radar 129.550, Modern Air 321 Bravo.
Modern Air 321 Bravo, read back correct.
We will now look at an exchange relating to a VFR clearance.
Golf Bravo Romeo Echo November, cleared to the zone boundary, VFR, left turnout after departure, route northern lane, not above altitude 1,500 feet, QNH 1002.
Cleared to the zone boundary, VFR, left turn after departure, northern lane, not above altitude 1,500 feet, QNH 1002, Golf Bravo, Romeo Echo November.
Golf Echo November, read back correct.
Complying with clearances and instructions. Pilots are expected to comply with clearances and instructions promptly, in accordance with normal aircraft operations. If, for any reason, a pilot does not wish to, or is unable to comply with an instruction promptly, the pilot should advise the ATS unit and provide an indication of when he intends to comply. An ATS unit may wish to indicate that time of compliance is at pilot's discretion, in which case the ATS message will include the phrase, "when ready."
Thompson 886, when ready, descend flight level 190, report leaving flight level 300.
Flight level 190, report leaving flight level 300, Thompson 886.
Controllers may want to indicate that the clearance or instruction is required to be complied with at a particular point. In this case, the message will include the phrase after passing. For example,
British 23 Yankee November. After passing Logan, descend flight level 90.
After passing Logan, descend flight level 90, British 23 Yankee November.
if it is important that the instruction or clearance must be complied with at once, the controller's message will include the word now or immediately. The word now indicates that the instruction should be complied with in accordance with normal aircraft operating procedures, but without undue delay.
Ryanair 337, reduce speed now, 220 knots.
Reducing speed now, 220 knots, Ryanair 337.
Use of the word immediately indicates that a further degree of urgency exists, and the pilot should take action to comply with the instruction as soon as practicable.
Golf X-ray Foxtrot, turn right immediately, heading 120 degrees.
Turning right immediately, heading 120 degrees, Golf X-ray Foxtrot.
Readback requirements. Readback requirements were introduced in the interest of flight safety to ensure that a message has been received correctly as intended. The stringency of the requirement to repeat information or instructions is directly related to the possible seriousness of a misunderstanding. Reading back also ensures that the correct aircraft and that aircraft alone will act upon the instruction given. The ATC messages listed shortly must be read back in full. If a pilot fails to read back any of these items, the controller will ask him or her to do so.
Golf Bravo Hotel, descend to altitude 3,000 feet, QNH 997 millibars.
Descend to altitude 3,000 feet, Golf Bravo Hotel.
Golf Bravo Hotel, read back QNH 997 millibars.
QNH 997 millibars, Golf Bravo Hotel.
Similarly, the pilot should request that any instructions that have not been fully understood be repeated or clarified. The items listed now are the ones which must be read back in full.
Level instructions, heading instructions, speed instructions, airways or route clearances, approach clearances, runway in use, clearances to enter, land on, take off from, backtrack, cross or hold short of an active runway, SSR or transponder operating instructions, altimeter settings, VDF information, frequency changes, type of radar service, and please note you may now also hear this referred to as the type of ATS surveillance service, taxi instructions, and transition levels.
The pilot should terminate the readback with the aircraft call sign. Items not included in the list may be acknowledged with an abbreviated readback. If the readback is incorrect, the controller will transmit the word negative followed by the correct version.
Golf Delta Charlie, QNH 1003.
QNH 1002, Golf Delta Charlie.
Golf Delta Charlie negative, QNH 1003.
QNH 1003, Golf Delta Charlie.
If at any time a pilot receives an instruction or clearance with which he cannot comply, the controller should be advised using the phrase unable to comply or simply the word unable together with the reason.
Golf November Tango, Squawk 4667.
Unable to comply, negative transponder, Golf November Tango.
Where doubt exists as to whether an instruction or clearance is possible, the controller may end the message with, if not possible, advise.
Britannia 712, climb flight level 340. If not possible, advise.
Britannia 712, unable, climb flight level 340, due wait.
Lastly, one other type of clearance that must be read back is a conditional clearance. Conditional clearances will not be used for movements affecting the active runway except when the aircraft or vehicle concerned are visible to both the controller and the pilot concerned. Conditional clearances relate to one movement only, and if it relates to a landing aircraft, this will be the first on the approach, the next to land. Conditional clearances are given in the following order: the call sign, the condition, the subject of the condition, and finally, the clearance. Here's an example.
Golf Sierra Papa. After the landing Boeing 737 on 3 mile final, backtrack, line up, runway 25.
After the landing Boeing 737, backtrack and line up runway 25, Golf Sierra Papa.
And another example.
Golf Bravo Hotel. After an outbound Cessna 172, taxiing left to right, taxi to stand 34.
After the Cessna 172, taxi stand 34, Golf Bravo Hotel.
End of Disc 1.